Hello, everyone. Good day. My name is Mofoluke Keshiro. It's good to have you join us today. I'd like to start by a brief introduction of myself. Mofoluke Keshiro, I'm a lawyer by training, and presently I'm an estate planning and trust advisor. Some time ago, we had a Facebook Live and it generated a lot of questions. We talked about the need for estate planning. Today, we'll be talking about the power of estate planning, but I'll do a brief recap of what estate planning entails. Estate planning, it's basically the process in which an individual undertakes to arrange his or her assets for transfer due to death or in anticipation of death. And that process is not just because you think eventuality death or incapacitation would happen in the immediate. It's you just trying to ensure that, things are in a central record. And for ease of accessibility by your beneficiaries, by your loved ones, they understand who to approach, how to go about things in times of eventuality. And from the last Facebook live session we had a lot of questions around, I'm too young to set up an estate plan. When do you recommend I should start? My response to that question was, once you start acquiring assets, regardless of the nature of asset, you try to ensure you have an estate plan. There was another question regarding estate planning is only for the wealthy. And my response was that it's a misconception for you to think estate planning is just for the wealthy. No, it is for everyone, regardless of age. Once you start acquiring assets, you should have a plan around those assets and who you want to enjoy them. There was an interesting one as well that says, I'm yet to acquire real properties, that is houses. So do I still need that estate plan? Yes, for your investments, for your cash in bank, for your retirement savings account, you need an estate plan. So to the main discourse of today, the power of estate planning. Why do you need an estate plan? I would like to itemize 5 reasons why you need an estate plan. You need an estate plan to preserve wealth. Don't be carried away by the fact that I said wealth. Wealth, indeed, is not, the massive, huge sums of money. It's those sums you have in your retirement savings account, in your mutual funds account, in your, bank, cash in bank. Everything that is attributed to you, you should have a plan around how you want it to pass on to the next generation. Also, you have legacies you want to outlive you. Those legacies, you need to leave instructions on how it should, pass on to the next generation. You need an estate plan to protect your assets and also to protect your loved ones, your beneficiaries. You need an estate plan to ensure assets are distributed in line with your desired objectives and not subject to what the state laws would determine or what relatives or family members would consider to be appropriate in the distribution of your estate. You need an estate plan to be able to minimize transfer costs, associated costs related to transferring assets to the next generation. Finally, I would say you need an estate plan to enable you nominate a guardian for your children. Before you appoint a guardian, you have to understand, or you have to be sure that the person you have nominated would cater to the welfare of your children, the person's views and ideas, aligned with what you think, what you believe in. You don't just leave things to chance. It's always important to clearly outline these things in a document where people would read and they would understand your mindset at the time in which you're writing it, and they will be properly guided by these instructions. I always say to people, because you do or you prepare an estate plan now, does not mean you are celebrating eventuality happening to you. No, you're just trying to ensure things are done properly in line with best practice for the love of your loved ones, for the assets that you have sweated to acquire, to accumulate, for your legacies, for those ideals that you hold dear to yourself. It is important that you take time to, out of your very busy schedule, sit with an expert. Give them your instructions. Let them help you to structure, to create a plan around all your ideas. I know some people, creating that time to sit with someone, to outline all the ideas, or even the records of all they own. A lot of people do not have records of all they own. They buy a property here in Lagos, they buy in Ekpe, they buy in, a lot of places. And the title documents are unperfected. They are scattered everywhere. Even for some people, they just make the payments for these properties. They do not get the title documents. And when you start engaging them in conversations, you say to them, oh, where are the title documents to this property? They say, oh, it's still with the vendor. And you ask, what steps are you taking to ensure you have your title documents with you? Because if anything happens to the vendor, the person goes away and the person's estate believes that the property still belongs to the vendor. So you purchaser, you are the receiving end. You now engage yourself in litigation, or your family members, they show the vendor's family, receipt of purchase, and a long drawn case goes on in court, unnecessary issues. Please ensure when you acquire any asset, you get proper titles to them and you ensure you perfect them. Create an estate plan. It is important, it is recommended, it is good for you, it is good for your family members, and it takes away a lot of stress, a lot of hassles. We got in some questions, and one of them says, can one start an estate plan without funds? My response, it's easy. What do you want to transfer to the next generation? You need funds to create an estate plan, be it cash in bank, investments, whatever it is. And also you have to pay your expert. However little what you're going to pay for the service, you have to pay the expert that is going to draw up the plan for you. We have a question from Mary that says, can one leave a full-time paid job and concentrate on an estate plan? I wouldn't know from what angle Mary is asking this question. Does the person intend to start, the process of advising on estate planning, or the person is misinterpreting estate planning to mean estate management? There's a huge difference. Estate planning is advising on how to transfer assets to the next generation, while estate management is the management of real properties. We have a question from Precious as well. It says, how do I start planning for my estate? The recommendation is simple. You speak with an expert. At FBNQuest Trustees, we are available to assist you through the process. Aniwura says, ask a question about low costs, high return land hotspots in Nigeria. Like I said earlier, estate planning is what we do at FBNQuest Trustees Private Trust Services. We are not real estate agents. So you might want to make inquiries about that online. So we have a question from Adaeze that says, do you need to tell your beneficiaries that they are named, that they're in your will? Our recommendation has always been, it's important for you to inform your family members, oh, I have an estate plan. We do not recommend to you to tell them the extent of what you have given out, because like we always say, we do not want you to accelerate or facilitate, eventuality. But it's important for you to tell them, yes, indeed, I have an estate plan. If eventuality happens, please go to FBNQuest Trustees if you have an estate plan drawn up with us. Or if a will is lodged in the probate registry, you tell them to take, the death certificate to the probate registry for, to accelerate the process of reading of the will. Well, a will has been lodged. We have a question from Najite that says, owning property jointly with your spouse, is that good or not? Everything is subject to what is applicable to you in your family. It is a good idea for you to own assets jointly with your spouse, regardless of you being the person, bearing the higher financial burden in the family. Yes, you can own assets jointly. It is a good thing, but the recommendation is where you own assets jointly, ensure you have a joint estate plan. Ensure you have a joint estate plan. Do not leave things to chance, saying, oh, if I predecease my spouse, or my spouse gets to enjoy the benefits of the assets. No, have a joint estate plan. And in a situation where, there's separation, please ensure you update your estate plan. Thank you very much, everyone who has joined in this conversation. We appreciate you. Right now, I would like to talk about why you need to keep your wealth within the family. A lot of people who own assets or businesses, they tend to believe or, try to carry on under the assumption that, or maybe a child or some children will take over the business from them. A lot of people do not have at their minds to the interest of the children involved. Sometimes they will say, oh, I know my first son, even though the child might be maybe a teenager, they would say, oh, I believe my son will carry on from where I stopped. I believe, what if they do not think of the possibility of, eventuality happening before the child comes of age? They do not think of a situation where the child might not be interested in the business. What happens? Do you want some relatives to take charge, to run things aground? Our recommendation has always been sit with an expert. We are available at FBNQuest Trustees to assist with this because of our expertise, our experience in advising people on how to ensure business succession is well structured, well planned. A business succession plan must be very detailed, must take into cognizance the current operation of the business, must take into cognizance the objectives, the goals of the proprietor of the business, where the person intends the business to go from, from now, in the short term, in the medium, and in the long term. Ideas around innovation for the business, ideas around, profitability, corporate governance, ensuring transparency, accountability, due process for the business, welfare of staff. It is very important for people to open up and get advice, get experts to make recommendations regarding how their business succession plan is prepared, is structured. And our recommendation is have an institutional partner or technical partner to run things for a while, even where you want your children to continue to run the business. Let things stabilize for a while, maybe between a 5 and 10 year period. Then the businesses can be given to, the children or whoever you have nominated. But when eventuality happens, a lot of people they're in the mourning process. They are unable to gather their thoughts together or to be able to take decisions objectively. But where you have an institution saddled with that responsibility, their role is to stabilize things and to work with the working document you have left behind. They would ensure this is carried out to the letter. So when we talk about, legacies, people have charitable objectives that they've carried on in their lifetime. They want to also continue when they are no more. These can also be, planned around. You can have a plan around, your charitable givings when you have left out instructions on how it should be perpetuated or how it should be carried on. We have a lot of people who have, you know, plans, philanthropic plans for, indigent, the widows, a lot of things, community development, scholarships. You can always put your instructions down and it will be followed through. But where you just allow things and you assume, oh, maybe in my lifetime, my family members already know that I have a weakness or I have inclinations towards, giving to people. I want to believe they will continue to do it. It doesn't usually work like that, because what you get to hear them say is, oh, the person has passed on after all. Oh, no, we should stop that. But you might want this to continue after you. So our recommendation to you is have a document outlining your instructions. Like I was saying earlier, expertise is key when you are making plans for your estate. You do not just leave things to chance and assume that, things will continue with your family members. Do not we do not we recommend that you ensure that you have a plan for your assets, you have a plan for your beneficiaries, you have a plan for your children, you have a plan for your words, people that you cater to in your lifetime. Always ensure that there is a document. Nothing should be left to assumption. Nothing should be left without a plan. And most importantly, I would like to talk about, a lot of misconceptions from women. Women tend to leave the issue of, eventuality to chance. They believe, oh no, because a lot of women are prayerful. They believe, oh, these things, eventualities or uncertainties happen to, maybe the unrighteous. I like to say to you, no, it happens to the most righteous of us. Indeed. And they are not planned for. They do not give any premonition that it's going to happen today or maybe soon, or give you a notice in 24 hours or in 12 hours. It doesn't happen like that. It just comes on you. But where there is no plan around how to handle situations like that, everybody is just campering for how to make better the situation. Most women do not have any estate plan. A lot of women rely on spouses. They believe, oh, because the husband makes provision financially for the family, it's his responsibility to do or to carry out the long-term plans for the family. Some people actually think, oh, no, I shouldn't, because women outlive men. So they believe, oh, he would have made plans. And maybe this husband would have made plans for the wife, the children, to ensure that, their welfare, their lifestyle continues. But because men are involved with ensuring they maintain lifestyle while they are still alive, they tend to forget. They put it in the back corner, thinking, no, I'm still agile. I can still work. At a later date, I will get round to creating an estate plan. But it's the responsibility of the women to tell their husbands to sit with an expert to map out a plan for eventualities, a plan around incapacitation, a plan around even death itself. There's this saying that's been attributed to Benjamin Franklin, that there are two certain things in life: death and taxes. Death would come regardless. We do not pray that it comes now, but eventually we are going to leave the earth. And how are we going to leave it? By passing on. So why don't we just sit and have this conversation with our spouse? Tell them, I think it's important to do this, not just for us, but for our children or for our loved ones, for our dependents. And because of some things that we hold dear to ourselves, we don't just want some individuals to come and, reap where they did not sow. You want to be sure that your sweat is not going into the wrong hands. Another thing I would like to say about, women, some mistakes women make is the issue of, saying, oh, I'm too young as a lady. I shouldn't start thinking of, estate planning. No, I'm not going to die yet. Yes, you won't die now, but it will save you a lot more if you have an estate plan, because there are vehicles you can adopt to acquire these assets. So the expert will make recommendations to you on the appropriate vehicle for you that will suit your lifestyle, suit your objectives in the short, medium, and long term. But if you do not take the step to speak with an expert, you will probably continue to acquire assets in a vehicle that will cost you more. Conversations like this we would like to engage individuals in, so that we will make recommendations and open your eyes to the benefits you can have when you create, an estate plan. And in certain situations, like the lady that asked the question about, joint estate plans, you recall I mentioned that, where there is separation, it's important for the couple to ensure that they update their estate plan. When there's separation, some people just leave things to chance and believe, okay, they're separated. They just leave, the plan they had created while they were together, the way it was, drawn up. But you would notice that where either party passes, the surviving party enjoys the benefit. And that might not be the intention of the deceased. So why don't you take out time to update your estate plan? I mentioned earlier, a lot of people, you'll be amazed at the number of people, professionals, non-professionals, who acquire assets and do not have records for the assets they have. The first step we usually undertake when we are making recommendations or planning an estate for anyone would say, oh, we'll need an inventory of your assets. And sometimes it takes them weeks. And we ask the question, oh, we can sit with you to get instructions on what you own. They'll say, what they have outlined to us at that meeting is not all they own, because things now come to them later. Oh, a property somewhere, oh, an investment somewhere. They only stumbled on the receipts at some point, or they remembered that, oh, they had undertaken the investment or opened the bank account at some point and they never went back. And you realize that, over the years, the sums of money in the account or in the investments, they have grown. But they never took out time to create a schedule of assets, to update the schedule of assets, to put the value to it. What if, when they pass on, everything falls into intestacy? Intestacy simply means, dying without a will. The distribution will be subject to state laws, not aligning with what you would have loved to do. I repeat again, make the right move now. Speak with an expert on how to ensure your estate is well planned. I would like to also talk about, please, if you have questions, I apologize, I've just been talking. If you have questions, kindly put your questions in the chat box. I would respond to all of them. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate the time you've taken to listen. Thank you. Please put your questions down. We have a question here. Do we tell the beneficiaries of our estate that they are beneficiaries? Oh, yes, but we would like to say to you that you do not state to them the extent of what they get to enjoy. Please do not tell them what they get to enjoy. You can just say to them, oh, yes, I've made provision for you in my estate, but do not state the extent of what they get to enjoy. I repeat, do not state the extent of what they get to enjoy. It just helps, it keeps things clean. Because when you create an estate plan, often I make recommendations to clients that you write out a letter of wishes. A letter of wishes is not a binding document. However, it expresses the reasons why you have created the plan, the purpose, what you were thinking about at the time of creating the plan, the distributions you have done, the reasons why you have done the distribution. And from experience, we also make recommendations to our clients that when you are creating your estate plan, be as fair as possible. Be fair to all concerned. Even though, the law allows you to exclude anyone in your will. But if you are going to exclude that person, you must state the reason why you are excluding the person. But because also as experts, and we have seen reasons why some cases are in court and, they are long drawn, we don't want your estate to be subject to such, situations. We would make recommendations to you on how you would, structure everything, that everybody would understand the reason why a distribution is in a particular way and why, certain things are done in a particular way. If you want someone, a particular person, to take over the helm of affairs in the business, you would explain the reason, we would outline the attributes, what you want the person to carry out, how you want the person to be supervised by the technical partner, like I said before, an institution that is unbiased. It is very important that, these things are clearly stated and everyone can see. They would understand and appreciate the effort that you are putting. It is not just, just writing straight on, you are making distributions. No, you are creating a plan that would speak from the deck, that everyone will read from and they would understand, they will be at peace. There will be no strife, no bad blood. Everything will be smooth. We always emphasize on the need to have a seamless transition, seamless transfer of assets to the next generation. Things to be done efficiently, effectively, and in a seamless manner. It is very important. I was speaking earlier about misconceptions that from some mistakes that women make. Women also, I talked about nomination of, a guardian for your children. Appointing a guardian for your child or children is a very, very important responsibility. While everyone prays, they have the opportunity to train their children to the level where they will be confident and they'll be able to hold their own in life. But, some people might not have the opportunity. And even if you would have the opportunity, you are not sure as we speak. So why don't you write out the person you believe will be able to carry out that responsibility? The person who shares your values about life, a person of integrity, a person who would instill the right values in your children, and someone who lives in the right environment. You have people who actually have these attributes, but where they live, you do not want your children to grow up in such an environment. You would say to yourself, you have to consider a lot of these factors before you take a decision. You don't just, take the decision on sentiments. Because this person is related to you, you believe the person will be able to do it. No, do not take decisions with sentiments. Do not take decisions with sentiment. Always, always, at all times, be open-minded to suggestions from your expert and also experiences that you've seen that will be shared with you. while we are engaging you when you are drawing up your plan. These experiences, they are invaluable, I must say, because there are a lot of estates now in shambles because maybe the asset owner was, recommendations were made to him or suggestions were made to him or her, and the person felt, oh no, this is the right way to do it. I wouldn't want to, take the recommendation by the expert for reasons best known to the person. But please ensure the experts' recommendations are considered. I have a question here from Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia. Must all properties owned by the client be stated if the client only requires aid in just a particular section? Okay, this is a very good question, Cynthia. We have some people say, oh, they just want to make an estate plan around a particular asset and they want to leave the other assets. And my question is always, why do you want to make an estate plan on a particular asset, leaving out other assets? When you can have everything under a central document, it is clear to everyone why you are creating the estate plan. Are you trying to give someone a particular person? It can be stated there. Are you trying to give, multiple parties? Yes, you can create an estate plan around a particular asset, but you don't want to have multiple documents being read or attributed or connected to you. A single document that will clearly state, oh, yes, I own property A, B, C, D in locations, as it may be. And I want to give this number of beneficiaries. Yes, you can have, an estate plan on a particular asset, but my recommendation is have an estate plan, a single one that would, help you explain what your concerns are, and distributions will be done on the documents that you have, drawn up. It's really, really, your feedback is really important. Thank you for taking out time. We really appreciate the engagement. We would appreciate more questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. I was still, before I responded to Cynthia's question, I was talking about some mistakes that women make. I talked about the nomination of, a guardian. And, a lot of people, not just women now, they have not given a thought to the process of, and the hassles involved in, obtaining a grant of probate where there is a will. Okay, maybe I should just do a little brief of what a grant of probate is. Where there is a will has been written and lodged. The will has been read. The names of the executors in the will, they would have to start the process of obtaining the grant of probate. The grant of probate is the document that validates the nomination or appointment of the executors to the estate. So when the grant of probate is given to the named executors, they start, they commence their responsibilities under the estate. But before that grant is obtained, the process is quite long and tedious. So a lot of clients do not know the extent of what it entails. So they leave things to chance. But we say to you that there are a lot of alternatives of transferring your estate or your asset to the next generation without going through the route of, obtaining probate or a will, drawing up a will. Depending on your circumstance or depending on what your objectives are, we can make recommendations to you that would eliminate that process, and you will be able to transfer your assets to the next generation in a seamless manner and even with less cost. But everything has to be put in perspective. Your objectives, your lifestyle, your goals, your beneficiaries, their citizenship is a holistic plan. So we need to sit with you to understand what your goals are, what your objectives are, to be able to make recommendations to you. It's really important we understand this. That is why often we always recommend a meeting. Even if you are going to have a telephone conversation, it will be very detailed to be able to understand what your objectives are, to make appropriate recommendations. It's better to have a robust plan rather than having, some skeletal thing or sketchy document that might create problems later. We are very detailed with our processes, and we always take out time to understand you, to give the appropriate recommendations to you. We appreciate this engagement today. And if you still have questions, please put up your questions. Thank you so much for the time. And we would indeed love to hear from you. You can send us an email. Thank you. So I would just like to do a brief recap of all I've said today. I've talked about estate planning, what it means. I've talked about, it basically means, an individual putting all assets together in anticipation of death. I've talked about, the need for estate planning. I've talked about, misconceptions about estate planning. I've talked about, mistakes that women make, and the importance of taking steps to ensuring you update your records. I've talked about, guardianship, nomination of a guardian. And I think I also explained the process of probate. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I would like to wrap up by saying, having an estate plan, like I said earlier, does not mean you are trying to accelerate eventuality happening to you, be it death or, incapacitation. But it helps to protect your assets. It helps to protect your loved ones. Please make out time to speak with an expert today and ensure a robust arrangement is created for you to suit your objective, to suit your goals, the type of assets you own. Thank you so much. We look forward to a more refreshing time soon. Thank you. Bye.